Teachers of Reddit, how obvious is it when one student has a crush on a classmate? I remember one time during an 8th grade field day hearing a bit of an altercation between a few kids. When I went over there, I saw that this one very nerdy kid was chasing another boy around the football field. A few other boys were standing around, laughing and egging them on, while a girl stood nearby, clearly distressed and telling them to stop. It turns out what happened was that one of those boys was teasing the girl. You know, that kind of stupid teasing 8th grade boys do to girls they like, pulling on her ponytail, making silly faces, and calling her names. The nerdy kid, who also seemed to have a crush on this girl, decided to stand up to the boy to defend her honor. He wanted to fight him, but instead of fighting, the boy ran in circles around the field. The nerdy kid chased him, furious and red in the face, his glasses slipping down his nose with every step. It was very cringy. I got the vibe that the girl didn't mind the teasing from that boy, and that the nerdy kid's crush was probably not reciprocated. She seemed more embarrassed by the whole situation than anything else. I broke up the fight, partly because I wanted to save the nerdy kid from his 8th grade self. I think most of us have been in a situation as a teenager where we try to impress someone who doesn't feel the same way. I didn't want him to look back years later and be even more embarrassed by it had it gone on longer. The boy who was running even started mimicking the nerdy kid's angry expressions, making the situation even more humiliating for him. After I broke it up, the nerdy kid stood there, panting, while the other boys continued to laugh and the girl just walked away, shaking her head. Teachers of Reddit, how easy is it for you to tell who has a crush on whom? Not a teacher, but I had a girl who I was really good friends with, and we used to play a lot since we were at the same desk every class. We would share jokes, help each other with homework, and sometimes even share snacks. Once a teacher turned to us and said, "You two seem like a couple with your legs on each other." The whole class burst into laughter, and we turned beet red. We were a little shy about it, then something like 2 months later we were doing the same exact thing in the same exact class and spot. The teacher turned to us again and said the same thing. "You two, always playing like that, looks like you love each other." No one laughed this time, and someone behind us said, "Well, it's not funny now since they actually are boyfriend and girlfriend." The teacher was surprised and laughed about it, and we did too. In the end, we were all in good spirits. That girl was wonderful, and I've always thought fondly of her. I have to tell her something someday about how much those moments meant to me and how they shaped our friendship. We ended up becoming even closer after that incident, often reminiscing about how clueless we were about our own feelings. We even started making inside jokes about it, like how we were the desk couple, and would laugh every time someone mentioned it. Middle school teachers of Reddit, what is the most awkward, cringy thing you've seen a student do? I used to teach middle school before graduating to teach high school. Middle school was a different beast altogether, filled with hormonal chaos and awkward growth spurts. While I was in middle school, I had one particularly awkward student in my last period who took a liking to me. He would stay after school every day just to hang out with me. He was always asking how he could help out after class, like cleaning the whiteboard, putting chairs up, that sort of thing. We would usually talk while he did this, and I tried to encourage him, thinking he just needed a little extra attention. One day he surprised me by saying, "I bet you'd be a really good dad. I think it would be awesome if you were my dad. Think of all the things we could do." I kind of laughed it off because middle schoolers say a lot of weird things, and I didn't want to make him feel bad. I thought it was a passing comment, but he seemed quite serious. He even started bringing drawings of us doing father-son activities, like fishing or playing catch. A couple of weeks go by, and it's the same thing. He's staying after school to hang out with me when he says, "You know you have a conference with my mom tomorrow." I replied, "Yeah, of course." Then he added, "She's really cute. You'll like her." What? Maybe you guys can go out on a date." Needless to say, that was an awkward conference. His mom was professional and polite, and I had to navigate the meeting carefully, avoiding any reference to her son's matchmaking attempts. The student was beaming the whole time, clearly proud of his efforts. After the conference, he asked, "So, how did it go? Did you ask her out?" I had to gently let him down, explaining that teachers and parents usually don't date. Teachers of Reddit, what's the most cringeworthy thing a student has said in class? It was my class's first day in 8th grade history, and Mr. Johnson introduced himself and showed us his right hand, which was missing 2.5 fingers. The class fell silent, eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and shock. He told us the story about how he was mowing his lawn and dropped a rag, which got stuck in the blades and the motor. With the motor running, he turned the lawnmower over and tried to pull the rag out. Instead, the rag in his hand were sucked into the blades. His wife called, and they were told to look for Mr. Johnson's fingers in the grass. Mr. Johnson's wife claimed that the operator told her that if they found the fingers, they should put them in a glass of milk to preserve them so they could be sewn back on. Turns out that's just for teeth. Anyway, his digits were far too mangled, and thus no preserved fingers. At the end of the story, one of my classmates, Sprinkles, raised her hand and asked, "Mr. Johnson? So if I get my head chopped off, should I put it in milk?" It was all Mr. Johnson could do to not laugh. And he just responded, "Yes, Sprinkles, if that happens, put your head in milk." The class erupted in laughter, and Sprinkles looked both proud and embarrassed by her question. Mr. Johnson later told me that it was one of the strangest but funniest questions he had ever received in his teaching career. Sprinkles became a bit of a class legend for that question, and it was often brought up in jest throughout the school year. Teachers of Reddit, what's the most immature or unprofessional thing you've done because you didn't like a student? Had a kid steal my pen once. Kids at my grade level don't use pens yet, and the pen was the exact same brand, style, and color that I always use. I teach in a small school and no other teacher uses that exact pen. The kid said that he found it in the hallway. The little shit knew that I couldn't prove that he stole it, so I just ignored him and went on with the lesson. Fast forward 10 to 15 minutes, and I hear a shout from him. He had been chewing on the pen, and it leaked all into his mouth. He then tries to wipe it out using his brand new shirt. The shirt gets completely ruined. I couldn't help but laugh at the ridiculousness of the situation. The next day, his sister, who is a year younger than him, couldn't wait to tell me that the boy got his rear end tore up for ruining his new shirt. Apparently, their parents were quite upset about the new shirt being destroyed. For the next month or so, whenever he didn't have a pencil, I would offer to let him use one of my pens. He never took me up on the offer, and every time, I could see the gears turning in his head as he remembered the ink incident. It was a small, petty victory, but it felt good nonetheless. The look of horror on his face whenever I offered him a pen was priceless. His friends even started teasing him about it, calling him Inky for weeks afterward. Teachers of Reddit, what's the funniest answer you've gotten from a student that technically wasn't wrong? I was in a special ed room where the children were sorting nouns. The picture of the mailman went in the people column, the baseball went in the things column, and so on. There were several pictures of animals, and a little girl, who wore shirts with puppies and horses on them almost daily, sorted the animals in the people column, and was the only one in class to have done so. I pulled her aside to ask her why she didn't sort the animals in the things column. I didn't tell her she was wrong. I just wanted to see her train of thought. She started giggling and burst out laughing, saying, "How is an animal like a thing? Animals are alive. A cow can't be like a desk." And she's cracking up because she thinks it's so silly that people view animals as things. I asked her if someone taught her that, or if she just knew it, and she said it was just something she knows. It was touching and innocent and very sweet. The rest of the class seemed to agree with her logic, and it sparked a lively discussion about what makes something a thing. I love animal lovers, and her perspective was a refreshing reminder of how differently kids see the world. She even started drawing pictures of her favorite animals and labeling them as friends, further emphasizing her point. The class started creating a people wall with pictures of animals they considered friends, making it a fun and educational project.